What's up, everybody? Welcome to another David at the Movies. Today, I'm going to be talking about Interstellar, one of my all-time favorite movies. It's always kind of been one of my all-time favorite movies, except recently, I think after this last time, it really just like moved all the way to the top. It is most likely, even though The Lord of the Rings just became my all-time favorite movies, I think Interstellar is now my all-time favorite movie. It was like already at third. But this movie is just so amazing. So this is probably like the fifth time I've seen it. I was showing my wife, and I was super excited to watch it because I hadn't watched it in a long time. I think, yeah, it's been a long time. So didn't remember too much, but I think the way that I started to love this movie was with most people. The first time I watched it, I was in my living room. I had recorded it on what's the not streaming, the old cable, and so there was commercials I had to skip through, and the lights were on, so I couldn't really see some of the dark space scenes. And so I finished it, and I was like, okay, like that was fine. What the heck was with the end of that movie? Speaking of the end, spoilers. I will be talking about spoilers. This is a 10-plus-year-old movie, so that should happen. And so yeah, after the first time I watched it, I was like, no, okay, like that was fine, whatever. And then my senior year of high school, I had to do a project on movies, and so I had to rewatch Interstellar, and I was like, holy cow, like this is one of the best things I've ever watched. And it got to the point where the ending is very complex, the to say the least. So I didn't fully understand it, but I was like, I get it and I like it and I can move past it. And then I watched it again at some point in life. And then this time, I think I actually understand the ending, which is huge growth because it's very complex. You have to be paying attention the whole time. But, anyways, might as well dive into the movie. So, obviously, this is directed by Christopher Nolan. I think this is probably his best movie. I know that he has so many amazing movies, and it is hard to pick, but I think this one is the best. I also think, obviously, it's fantastic direction, such a well-made movie. Cinematography is fantastic. The worlds and space just look amazing. And one thing I want to say about set design, which I feel like I noticed this time over the rest, was how the spaceship looked and really everything that wasn't the space or planets around them that was like their spaceship or the place that Dr. Mann was at. Like, yes, it's all in space and it's all high tech, but all of it looks so run down, which I think is a really good touch because obviously the world's ending and this is like the last amount of resources we have. And so I really liked watching that time being like, oh, yeah, like everything's a little dirty, everything's a little shaky. And I thought that was a really nice touch and I liked it. I also think that with Christopher Nolan, we need to give him a little bit more credit as a writer. Him and his brother wrote this. I know that he's written a couple other films of his, not all of them. But I mean, this writing, especially watching it back after you've already seen it, is just so good. It's really beautiful. Like it's like poetry watching this movie, hearing some lines like Anne Hathaway's monologue about love or earlier talks about gravity and the dimensions of the world. And it's just like watching it back, you're like, oh my gosh, like they're setting this up literally from the opening scene for the end of the movie. And I think people are always like, well, yeah, it was good, but I don't get the end of the movie. And it's like, well, just pay attention for the first 2 hours because that's all they're doing this whole movie is just outlining for you what the end's going to be because it's rooted in a lot of like real science and then there's science that we don't know about or we don't know what happens and so they take leaps there, but they're so amazing at writing that they start showing you, okay, this is why it makes sense that these leaps are going to happen. And so if you really pay attention, I think it really helps the end of the movie and really helped me just click once again. And I think it's just such an amazing story, so well directed. So, like, yeah, obviously zero problems there. I can't believe that Christopher Nolan didn't win Best Director until Oppenheimer because, yeah, he should have won it for this movie. I don't know what won it in 2014, but it wasn't this. So, yeah, everything behind the screen, the script, the direction, the cast, which I'll get to, amazing. It's an amazing story that I think is so well told, and I think it's so interesting how it can really affect like anybody in their walk in life. Because when I first watched this, I was in high school, I was in college, I was single. I was watching Cooper, Matthew McConaughey's character, and he's talking about going on this like adventure. He always wanted to fly. He wants to go save the world. And I'd always be like, heck yeah, like go, like do it. Like let's save the world. This is amazing. But my wife's pregnant with our first child. And so watching it now, I'm like, well, no, don't leave your kids. Like, that's horrible. And I felt so much more connected to his character. And I think him as a father is really dived into, and just the relationship between father and daughter, not really father and son. Timothy Chalamet and Casey Affleck play his son. He's just kind of there. He's like, Matthew McConaughey is always just like, yep, I love you. We're good. Take care of my farm. And that's it. But with Murph, it's like this whole thing. And it's such an amazing display of a relationship through time. And it's just so beautiful. And again, that goes back to the script. But then it comes into acting. Matthew McConaughey and the young girl who plays Murph, I don't know who her name is, and then Jessica Chastain, it's so amazing that you feel like these people, these two characters are as bonded as the story wants you to think they are, and they portray it so well. And you feel that emotion in the beginning of him leaving, and then you feel it all over again, him watching himself leave. It's so good. All their emotional points, I think, hit, and I think that that's what makes this movie so amazing. Yes, it looks great. The story itself, though until the end simple, is really entertaining. But it's the Murph and Cooper relationship that I think really has you holding on to this movie and to where it's going. And I love also how they're both kind of the center of gravity in their storylines, because this is kind of like a two-legged story, because two things have to happen. One, Cooper and his crew has to go find a planet that we can actually live in. And two, Murph and Dr. Brand, Michael Caine's character, have to solve the equation for gravity. And so it's kind of like yeah, like which one's more important? It's like they're both really important and they both need to happen. Obviously, things change a little bit when you figure out the twist. But I think because you have Murph at one spot and Cooper at the other, you're still locked in so closely to both because you just care so much about this family. And then the side characters too, they aren't slacking. They're great. Dr. Brand is great. Michael Caine's obviously amazing. And when they loop in his twist, that just adds, I think, just a great section of the movie. And it really leads up to the most intense part of the movie, probably the best part of the movie, maybe. And then you have Dr. Brand's daughter, played by Anne Hathaway, who's also great. She's kind of like the antithesis of who Cooper is, and so they're just bickering and going back and forth all the time. But it's really good, and they both have really good points in their arguments, which I think makes, again, just great dialogue, great conversation. Nothing feels wasted, and I loved it. And also Romley, I don't know the actor of that name. He's really cool. He honestly doesn't have a lot of lines. And then Seneca Crane from The Hunger Games, I liked him, even though he's also very short lived. And then out of nowhere, Matt Damon shows up, which is really cool and really funny to have him in a role where he's not the main guy because it's Matt Damon. And that is, I mean, again, I talked about how it's like a two-legged story. They have a two-legged twist of like at the same time you're finding out, oh, Dr. Mann lied to everybody and his planet can't have life. And now he's trying to kill Matthew McConaughey. And then you also have Dr. Brand, who's like, yeah, I can't solve gravity. I gave up a long time ago, but I needed them to believe that we could solve it. And so everything's just falling apart. And then it leads into Murph setting the farm on fire, Dr. Mann trying to escape and steal the whole spaceship, and it's the most intense sequence. And it's a really long sequence, and it's so good. Going back and again, the back and forth of this movie is amazing and done so well and in such symmetry that I think you're not feeling like you're being detached from one story and put into another. You feel like it's the same story moving together. And it's just so great. It's such an amazing sequence and intense scene that leads into this black hole tesseract. Cooper can see into the past and affect the past and basically tell her how to solve gravity. And then, everything ends up all right. And it's so amazing. And yeah, obviously, people say a lot about the ending. It's very polarizing. I think people either are kind of on board with it. Eventually they get it, or they're just like, that was dumb. What the heck? Made no sense. But it does make sense. I've read some I've read some articles about how it makes sense if you go into all the dimensions and stuff. Solving gravity, you can work through time, and then kind of going into my biblical application here of the movie, because I think this applies so well. Listening to Dr. Anne Hathaway's monologue about love and how it transcends all dimensions, and how it's, I think, the fifth dimension. I don't know if the fifth dimension is time or gravity. I don't know. One of them, or love's maybe above all the dimensions, something like that. And like, she was like, there's just something higher about love. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're so true, or you're so right. It is because God is above everything and all of the dimensions and stuff. If you're picking up my language, and that's what she's like looking for, and what everyone's looking for. And it's like, even if they don't know it, because you're looking for all these different ways. You can be the smartest person ever, like she's extremely smart, but you're still trying to figure out why love works the way it does. And the only answer is Jesus. But when you look at the end of the movie, like, yes, they could solve gravity and they could build this tesseract of time, because they've, solved gravity. They can manipulate time now, make it a physical reality, but they can't, you know, change time. And they need Cooper and his love to fix it. And it's like, that's just how it works. Like, we can't do anything without love because of Jesus, and Jesus is love. And so I just thought that was so beautiful, such an amazing depiction of love, really, and how it just affects the whole world. And it's the whole world's origin is from that. And so you see that, I feel like, in this movie, and I think it's written so well and has such a great conclusion to it. So yeah, I love Interstellar. Obviously, A+ movie, perfect movie, probably my favorite movie, especially now that I'm a father and I understand it more and more every time I watch it. So this is an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, please check it out and give it a second chance. The first chance, you might be like, what the heck happened those last 20 minutes? I get it. Just give it a second chance, because it's so good and it's so amazing. I think it's Christopher Nolan's best, obviously. And yeah, that's my review and biblical application of Interstellar. If you guys liked this, you could like and subscribe, and be looking out for the next issue of David at the Movies. And I hope you guys have a great day.